Hi everyone, welcome to our program today. We will be going to have our community tour of Locust Grove and Doudton, both of which are located in the Short Creek voting precinct. We have up for you the 1884 precinct map, and you can see Doudton on there pretty clearly, and probably Locust Grove. To get here, you have to come on US 27, or if you're in Falmouth, take US 27 north. There's several ways you can come, but the easiest one to explain is take 27 north to Highway 22, which will be a left turn off of 27, and just follow 22. You'll come to Locust Grove and then to Doudton, both on 22. While you're on 22, you will drive past 1054. It will be on your left. And if you continue on, the next road on your left will be Gum Lick. Our first stop is going to be between those two. It is the Locust Grove Cemetery that we will make our first stop. So at this point, I'm going to ask Jacob to just go ahead. I've cropped out Locust Grove on the precinct map, and I'm going to ask him to show you that. In the red boxes, I have highlighted where we are going to stop in Locust Grove, and I've done the same thing for Doudton, and we'll show you Doudton when we get there. But I did highlight the boxes with a red box where we're going. Okay, so here we are at the Locust Grove Cemetery. The Pendleton County Historical Society holds the deed to this cemetery. They also hold the deed to several others. I mention that because they've worked really hard to keep it clean and to take care of it. They've also entered the burials that they can find on to Find a Grave. For this cemetery, there are 11 on Find a Grave. As you can see, the sign is here. If you want to donate to them to help maintain these cemeteries that they hold the deed for, you can do that. You can contact them directly, or if you don't know how, you can contact me and I'll put you in touch. It's very much a worthwhile project. So we're walking around here. Well, first of all, I'm going to have Jacob put up that Locust Grove map if he hasn't already done so. And you will see property owned on both sides of the road by a John Fornash and a James Fornash. I believe they were brothers. John is the man who donated the land for the Locust Grove Cemetery and the Locust Grove Methodist Church. You will see a store over there by James's name. That store was there in 1884. The store we are going to visit was not built until 1908. So I don't really know anything much about that store of 1884, other than it appears on that map. My guess, because it has James Fornash's name right next to it, would be that he owned the store, or at least it was on his property. We will also be going to the Locust Grove School. You will see that on the map. It's marked as number 3. Okay, so now we're back to Locust Grove Cemetery, and here's the sign. I'm going to pan around and let you see the graves. I see no evidence of the church. There may be, but I have not stumbled onto it while I was walking around out here earlier. I don't know when the land was deeded. I did not run the deed. But I do know that the church did exist in 1905. Jenny Coppage Ammerman was, her obituary appeared in the paper, and it said that she joined the church here in 1905. But at the time she died in 1932, her funeral was held at the Williamstown Methodist Church, and she was buried in Williamstown. I don't know if that was just because she changed churches and maybe moved to Williamstown, or if there just was no church here by that time. I have no clue. So if you have any information on this church, we would love to have that shared with us. Thank you. We're going to go on down to the store now. Okay, we are here at our second stop. This is the location of the Locust Grove store. Remember now, this was not the store that was on the precinct map that we showed earlier. This one was built in 1908. There were 5 men who participated in the financing of it. They were Horizon Jewett-Poor, Newt Whaley, W.T. Payne, Walter W. Wilson, and Richard Jones. Later, when they could afford to buy it, the building was sold to the JOUAM Lodge number 152. Those letters stand for the Junior Order of United American Mechanics. The lodge had an auxiliary known as the D of A, Roanoke Council number 58. The D of A stood for Daughters of America. They used the second floor as their meeting room, and there were stairs that went up on the side to get to that room. It was on the left of this building. The first floor was a general store. It was operated by several different tenants. Bill Ruby, Elmer Ewing, Elmer Wilson, Lewis Perry, Elmer Arnold, Luther Sargent, Homer Shelton, Claude Dance, Ralph and Woodrow Poor, Charlie Wilson, Newt Whaley, Vernon Wolfe, Frank and Lizzie Hutchison, Bud King, Elsie Clark, Woodrow Blades, Frank Blackburn, Paul and Judy West, Bucky Walters, Charlie Brewer, Charlie Race, Harold and Alberta Lay were the known tenants. When the Sargents owned this, they lived in the house next door. And guests would come. They had one of the first radios in the area, so people would come to watch to listen to the radio. They would also come to listen to music. The store had people come and play. This neighborhood had a lot of musically talented folks. The Scott family has performed here before, and if you saw the last tour that I did, they were at the very end of that tour of Roanoke Gumlick, and that family played here quite a bit. When the Sargents owned it, people would put their coats in the house, so because I guess there was no place in the store to hang them. There was another store here at some point in time in January, because the Outlook ran an article in January of 1921 referring to the store as the Locust Grove Union number 361, and it said that they met here every Tuesday night and had a good attendance. People from other unions would come. Apparently the store was open during these meetings because it gives a report that it took 5 clerks 5 hours to check everyone out at this the last meeting that they had. I'm going to ask Jacob to put up the picture for me of the Locust Grove Lodge and store as it looked in 1910. Pretty cool picture. You can see the sign for the lodge at the top. The Junior Order of American Mechanics was founded in 1853. It was a political secret society for American citizens. It allowed women to join. They also offered an insurance policy. Mechanic in those days did not mean what we think mechanic is. In this case, it was more like an artisan. I will tell you that if everybody I knew who was able to track as a member here, they were farmers. However, membership in this organization was only open to native-born white Americans who professed belief in a supreme being, supported the separation of church and state, and was not engaged in the trade of liquor. In 1853, the OAUM authorized a junior lodge, and that's where the JOUAM came in. They were more popular than the parent organization, and they outgrew it. At that point, there was no age limit, and they started admitting women as well. We are going, in that picture, I want to show you a few things, point out a few things. I don't know if you can tell in this picture or not, but the men are most all of the men there are holding some kind of an implement, an axe, a corn knife, something that came out of that store. On the far right of this picture is Bill Ruby, who we mentioned earlier as one of the owners. Next to him is Alvin Wilson. He would marry the school teacher in the area, her name being Alice Lowe. And when we go up to the school, I will tell you a little more about them. In this picture, we have on the left, far left, Lewis Martin. Then next to him with the dog, George Ammerman. Horace Poor, Sr. The next person is supposed to be Tommy Kells. I have my doubts on that one being accurate. There were two Thomas Kellses, father and son. The son was born in 1902, so he would have been 8. So this means it has to be the father, and that was my grandfather, so great-grandfather. So I have a couple of pictures of him, and I think he's a much bigger man than this picture shows, and much thinner man. Next to him is Luther Ruby, and then the man holding the big long knife, that's a corn knife, Jabez, I can never say it, Jabez, I think, Poor, Albert Shoemaker, and then of course Alvin Wilson and Bill Ruby. We also have another picture. I'm going to ask Jacob to show you that one. This picture was taken of lodge members in front of the Roanoke Church. It's believed they were attending a funeral. We don't really know the date on this picture, but the gentleman in the first row standing, second to the left, is William Sanders Porter, known as Willie Porter. Died in June of 1932 after being sick for about 17 days. So it would have had to have been prior to that. The young man standing to his right or to the left of the picture is Everett Hutchinson, and he was born in 1902. So depending on how old he is there, and I know he has some relatives in the area, maybe you all can shed some light on that, and we can get a better date on this picture. I would say probably at least 1920 would be the earliest to the spring of 1932 somewhere as it stands. Now we will go on to the Locust Grove School. We'll see you there. Hi everyone. We are now at the site of the Gumlick School, and on that little precinct, the little section of Locust Grove on the precinct map that I showed you, that was schoolhouse number 3. Just in case you are following along with that. When you come off 22, you go straight onto Gumlick, and straight ahead would be Ammerman Road. Gumlick makes the big curve around. So when you make the big curve, this is not too terribly far from when you come out of that curve. I'm going to ask Jacob to put up a picture now of the class of 1912. These were students who attended here at the time. Their teacher is Alice Lowe. She would go on to marry Alvin Wilson, and I think I mentioned in the preview or in the little excerpt about the store that he was the father of James Lowe Wilson, who married Lois Wilson, and many of us who went to school in the Pendleton County schools would have had Lois in school. Lots of common names in this picture for this area. They include Ammerman, Kells, Moore, Ruby, Martin, and a few others. So this concludes the Locust Grove portion of this tour, and we'll be going to Doudton next. Okay, here we are at Doudton. You can see the little cropped section from the Short Creek precinct map of 1884. And you can tell, you know, Doudton's in big letters, so probably it was a happening place, is my guess. You can see that there at one time was a store with a post office, at least in 1884 there was. In this tour of Doudton, we are going to go to the Mount Carmel Baptist Church and cemetery. We will also slide over the county line to visit the Roundtop School. That's where we are going to head next. When I get to Mount Carmel, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Doudton and one of the main founders of the area. Okay, so just literally over the county line, we have the Roundtop School. I'm showing it because if you lived at Doudton, it's possible that you went to school there. I know of people who did. The county line was pretty fluid as far as schools went back then. You've got to remember kids walked. So this had to be in walking distance of them. So if you lived on Hog Ridge or what's now Kells Road or maybe even Mount Carmel, this would have probably been your closest school. So that's why I wanted to show this. There's nothing here now, but at one time there was a house here. I found some information on the Roundtop School on Northern Kentucky Views, and they show that in 1895 there were 90 pupils reported in the census. I'm assuming that the census probably only included Grant County. I really don't know. But they showed a number of 65 students enrolled in the school here, but the average attendance was 44. School just wasn't as important as it is today. In that time, a lot of times kids were needed at home to farm and what have you. The teacher in 1895 was L.S. Williams. The school was also in existence in 1903 with 41 pupils. I know that it probably existed a little longer than that. I'm pretty sure that it did. I'm not sure when they closed it, however. Okay, so this wraps up Roundtop School. We're going to turn around, cross the county line again, and make a left onto Hog Ridge. Okay, here we are at Mount Carmel Baptist Church. When you come down Hog Ridge, the first road on your left is Kells. The second one is Mount Carmel. You'll even see a sign for the church pointing in this direction. So if you decide to come out here, you shouldn't have any trouble at all finding the place. This church is a very old congregation. Across the road from it is the cemetery. And I'll just kind of try to get above the fence there and give you an idea of how big it is. There's even people over there under the trees. A lot of names I noticed were Adams, Jones, Hutchinson, Wilson, Poor. Those were some of the common names out in this area. This cemetery is on Find a Grave if you want to go and have a look. I don't have a lot of information on the church. What I do have came from research done by Dr. Henry DeCourcy Adams. Dr. Adams descended from the brother of the man who gave the church land to build on. That man was Thomas Davis Adams. He was known as Tommy D, and that's D-E-E, not just an initial. He was born in Boone County and believed to have moved from there directly to Pendleton sometime between 1845 and 1848. He was one of the organizing members of the Baptist Church here and gave the ground, cut the trees, and helped to build the church about 1853. He also gave the ground across the road for this church to have a cemetery. Tommy D owned a considerable amount of land in this area. He raised horses and cattle and sold them. That was his livelihood. He also had a general mill at Doudton. He got so deep in debt that he couldn't get out. He wound up filing bankruptcy. He was able to save his house, and that's where he died, and he saved about 75 acres of land with it. His wife was Lucretia, also known as Creasy Adams. She was a first cousin of his, their fathers being brothers. An interesting tidbit on him is that in 1860, he listed on the census, he listed himself as a farmer. His real estate was valued at $2,600 and personal estate $840. That's pretty good for 1860, and shows just how much land he did have. Okay, this wraps up the Mount Carmel Church and is the end of our tour. I thank you today for joining me. This is going to be on our YouTube channel, and you can see it all throughout the month. I hope that you do. If you do decide to come out here, I will warn you, this is Mount Carmel Road is a little country road. It's narrow, it's curvy, so be careful. Thank you again for joining us. Bye-bye.